Welcome to Operation Healing Heroes. Join us in the boat today as we feature Gold Star spouse Kelli Campbell Goodnow.
They served for us. They sacrificed for us. Their stories deserve to be told. Every military veteran has a story to tell. Join our host, Jay Garstecki, as we honor the stories of our true American heroes, one soldier at a time. The mission today is Operation Healing Heroes. Brought to you by Great Clips. It's been said that the strength of our nation is our military servicemen and women, and their strength comes from their families. It's just outside of Kansas City where we connect with Gold Star wife, Kelli Campbell Goodnow.
Our viewers may or may not know what a Gold Star family is, right? And it almost sounds like it's a prestigious thing if you don't know any better, right? So Gold Star family is not something that you'd want to ever be.
Right. Yeah, we say, Gold Star wives will say it's a club you never want to be in. But once you are, you're never alone.
Yeah.
I remember being at a Memorial Day event, and my daughter, Kate, she had her Gold Star pin on her shirt, and somebody looked at it and said, "Oh, Gold Star, what's that? How do I get a Gold Star?" And, your heart just drops in that moment when you have to explain, again to a stranger, and of course then they feel bad, but yeah, it's a badge no one wants to wear at all. When Sean explained to me what he was headed into with the Marine Corps, after we knew we were headed towards marriage, he came to me with a list of questions on a yellow legal pad. And he had written out all of these what ifs, just things he wanted me to consider, things he had to consider. Questions like, do you realize, my job, I may have to take someone's life one day. Do you realize that I may lose my life someday? Very serious what ifs when it comes to the military. And we went through those questions. We cried through those questions. And then we put that piece of paper away, and we never thought about the what ifs again. And I think back on that conversation, and I'm just so thankful that he had the care and the wisdom to bring that up and to address it and to talk about it, as hard as it was. But then for us to be able to look at it and say, we are not going to live in fear. And we didn't.
So Sean was going into the Marine Corps to be a pilot, correct?
Yeah.
And when did he actually get his wings?
He pinned on his wings in December of '03. And by the time he pinned on his wings, I was very pregnant with our first son. I remember a couple times when Sean would, he would sing the Marine Corps hymn at the top of his lungs in the shower, or, once we were camping, actually in college, so he was just about to become a Marine, and we were on a camping trip with other people, and it's dark and everybody's intense, and he's singing at the top of his lungs in the tent. He had a lot of pride in the Marine Corps.
Operation Healing Heroes is brought to you by Great Clips, the Yance Valor Foundation, and by the Al Lynch Foundation.
Operation Healing Heroes is a nonprofit organization dedicated to documenting the lives of our U.S. military veterans. In addition, we also provide financial support and treatment for post-traumatic stress. Your donation will help heal our heroes.
January 14th, 2016, about 18 months into living in Hawaii, that was the day that everything changed. Sean had a night flight scheduled, so he was home that morning. He was going to go into work later, and we were all together. We had just kind of come down off of Christmas break high. You know, we had family visiting, and we'd spent 10 days just being tourists on the island together and enjoying that time, and Sean had taken some time off. So I know now what a blessing that was. And then that day he was home, and we were all kind of grumpy.
Yeah.
We weren't ready to go back to work and school and normal life, but that's what we were working on. And I remember, I had come down kind of sick that day, and just a normal
Life
kind of
was
day
happening.
for a family of 6. And Sean, being Sean, he didn't want to leave for work and leave us in that state. So, I just remember him. He was in his flight suit, ready to go, but he gathered us all in the living room, and we all sat down and just to kind of take a breath as a family. And he just wanted us to hit reset, So he prayed for us. And we were a praying family, always, but he didn't necessarily sit us down every day before he left for work. And so it was unusual, and yet I know it was just something in his spirit slowed him down that day. He prayed that we would love one another well. And that was it. And then he hugged us goodbye. And he said he'd be home in the morning. And I know that he was. I know that Sean was home in heaven before that next morning. So we went to bed that night, just sure he would come in the middle of the night, like always. And I remember I was woke up by a phone call at 4 o'clock in the morning, and it was my dad. He was calling from Kansas because of the time zone difference. He was awake and watching the news, and there was news of a crash in Hawaii.
A massive search continues in the waters off Oahu's North Shore. 12 Marines are still missing after the 2 helicopters they were on crashed.
He had hesitated to call, but just couldn't stand it anymore, and woke me up just to make sure that Sean was home. And that's when I realized he was not home. And that was when I reached over. I remember putting my hand on his pillow. The news was saying that the crash was 2 CH-53s from Marine Corps Base Hawaii. He had gone out to fly a night flight with 2 helicopters, and so I knew in that moment it was him. But it wouldn't process.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember I got up and just I didn't really know what to do. Like, you're standing there thinking, do I get dressed? Do I go to the squadron? Do I wake up the kids? What do I do? And but I remember making some calls and trying to figure out, who can tell me something. And I think in the back of my mind, I knew, he's not home. This crash was him. But you can't process that. And so, I needed to hear the words from somebody. And I waited and waited. And I remember at one point sitting down in my living room and picking up my Bible, and I don't think I read anything. I just sat there with it. Just knowing, I had no other comfort. And the sun came up. I remember sitting outside on the sidewalk outside of my house. Maybe I was trying not to scare my kids. At that point, they had woken up and were asking questions. And I was sitting outside on the phone with a friend, and she was on her way over. As I was talking to her, I looked up, and our front yard was surrounded by this stone wall. And I saw 3 officers suddenly appeared, around the bushes, and they were coming around that wall. And I remember my daughter Katie running to the gate to let them in, and it felt like in that moment, maybe she thought one of them was her dad. But they came in, and they're in dress uniforms, and so I knew what they were there to say. And I had been waiting just for somebody to just tell me. And I looked up, and one of them was Sean's closest friend from the squadron. And so I grabbed him and said, just tell me. And his answer was, we don't know, we don't know.
Operation Healing Heroes is brought to you by Great Clips, Power Pole, and by St. Croix Rods.
Were they on?
He
Were they
was
on you?
on. He pulled it under. Did you get the worm?
I think there's, yeah, of course.
Oh.
It's all right.
There's a tiny
a
bit
little
of it there.
Yeah, there's a little chunk on there. They'll still eat it.
Okay, come on, little fish.
If you'd like to see more behind-the-scenes footage, follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're a U.S. military veteran in Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, Minnesota, or beautiful sunny Florida, log on to our website, takeavetfishing.org, to find an event near you.
After a nighttime training mission, Major Sean Campbell's helicopter was missing.
And so he took me inside, and they read the official report, and it said missing collision, missing ocean. And my kids are hearing this, and they're suddenly thinking, okay, Dad's out in a lifeboat somewhere. And I'm hearing this and thinking, I knew. The one blessing of that week, it was 5 days of searching and waiting. And so in that time, our family and friends all came out to be with us. And on that last day, when the final report came and they had, DNA evidence that they knew there were no survivors, there was a crowd of people in my yard. I mean, there were so many people, we had to go in the yard. And they read that report, and my mom was there with me. And then we sat down in the living room with the kids, just grandparents and me. And, each child at that point was in someone's lap when I had to tell them that their dad was not coming home. And I'm glad it was that moment and not that first day when we were by ourselves.
Mm-hmm. So how do you get through something like that? I mean, you just pray, or?
You kind of go into survival mode, which means you end up relying on habits you didn't know you had. I remember that morning as I waited and didn't know what to do, picking up my Bible and just holding it. If I read, I don't remember, but I just remember I didn't know what to do, but I knew the God we trusted in had not changed. And so our faith really got us through that time. And our faith really, I think, and because I have an extended family that also feels that way, we just were surrounded by comfort and prayer and peace. Peace is what, that morning when we were waiting, there was so much peace that I can't explain. And that really stayed with us. I think about Sean praying for us as he left and sort of instilling peace in our home. And it didn't leave. We had a squadron memorial on the base right after.
Major Campbell! Major Sean Campbell! Major Sean M. Campbell!
The Heart of America Patriot Foundation provides educational support and scholarships for dependents of deceased or 100% disabled veterans.
If you'd like to personally thank a veteran that you've seen in one of our episodes or nominate a veteran to be featured in a future episode, log on to our website, operationhealingheroes.org.
Operation Healing Heroes is brought to you by Recon Boats, Excel Automotive, and by Temple Bay Lodge.
I remember getting on that plane in Hawaii to leave without my husband. And up until that day, it had been getting ready and doing the next thing and doing the next thing, and one thing after another, and life is just moving and you're just surviving, and then suddenly it gets really quiet. And I think that's when it really sets in, like, so this is my life now. Yeah. What do I do? I didn't know how, but I knew I needed to get back to something normal, you know? But I didn't know what normal looked like anymore. And I didn't know where to live. Where do you live when the Marine Corps is not telling you where to live? You know? So I didn't know how to choose my own zip code. And so moving into a house in Leawood, Kansas with my children and me was weird. It was also really scary and sad, you know, to find a home that was just me and my kids. It just felt so lonely.
I have to believe at that point your faith played a big part in it also.
Very big. Yeah, during that time, I clung to God, and I knew He had a plan. And I knew it was good. I just couldn't see it.
How do you move on and actually pick up the pieces and move on with your life?
You don't expect to find yourself thinking about dating as a single mom of 4 when you're 38, you know. You don't move on, but you move forward, you know, and you take it all with you. So it was a weird time, and I probably started thinking, you know, out of loneliness. I mean, you get lonely, and, you know, watching my kids go through life without a dad, it's hard. But God brought along Mike, who is just a miracle.
4 years after Sean's death, Kelli and Mike Goodnow were married right before the COVID pandemic shut the world down.
That was the hugest gift for us, to bond and to see the kids just really, really attached to Mike. And throughout, for him to be willing to talk about Sean and to tell them when he saw things in them that they got from their dad.
And you've got to know that Sean would have wanted you to be happy.
Definitely. Definitely. I like to think they would have been good friends. You know, Sean had always wanted to take Tristan out hunting, shooting, and, you know, that was something they loved, but didn't get a lot of opportunities. And Mike's a big hunter, and so, you know, I just remember him, after the first time he took Tristan out hunting, telling me about, you know, he was a great shot, and he looked at him and said, "You got that from your dad." And, you know, there's nothing better as a mom to see this man step into that role and love your kids so well. But also, he has a love for Sean, their dad, and he knows what a big role he stepped into, but he still did it, and that took a lot of courage. The words of Isaiah 41:13 came to me at some point. I am your God who takes hold of your right hand and says to you, "Do not be afraid, I will help you." And even now, I'm struck by those words because it reminds me how true they are and how true they've been, how I've seen that. You know, God took hold of my hand, not just on the day Sean died, but long before. You know, he was preparing us for this because he knew. And, you know, I know now that all those years of building community and friends and, you know, Sean being the parent he was and praying his last prayer for us to love each other, that was God working in him to prepare us.
I almost feel silly giving you a gift, but I just want to say thank you for sharing your story with us. And
oh my gosh.
I want to give you this custom St. Croix rod that we had made for you. It says, "Kelli Campbell, in appreciation of your sacrifice." And it's all the branches of service on there. That's for you.
That's really cool.
And then we've also got you your own Operation Healing Heroes jersey
Awesome.
to commemorate our time together. Thank you so much.
We'll use it. Thank
I give you a hug?
Of course.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing Sean's story. Thank you for preserving his legacy.
Thank you for sharing a story.
It means a lot to us. And
beautiful.
I hope that we can just honor him the way he deserves to be honored, because
Yeah.
he's a true American hero. If you'd like to personally thank a veteran that you've seen in one of our episodes, or nominate a veteran to be featured in a future episode, log on to our website, operationhealingheroes.org, and click on the nominate button.